Hey everybody, welcome to episode 2 of the ReFounded Project podcast. This is Zach Paula, and today I sat down with my friend Greg Hake. Greg is a retired senior chief with 22 years of naval service, 18 of which were as a Navy SEAL. Greg made numerous combat deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan during the global war on terror. Greg retired from the Navy in 2019 and started his own consulting company called Fatal Flaw. Today, Greg works for a pharmaceutical company and is currently getting his master's at USC. It was an honor and privilege to have Greg as my first guest, and we had an excellent discussion. I really hope you enjoy, and without further ado, here is Greg Hake. All right, man. So we're going. So how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you? Been a while since we've seen one another.
Yeah, I was thinking about
COVID
that.
and other things,
Yeah, have you been in Dallas recently?
I have not.
Yeah,
Not
and
for
to
a
get you
long
back in
time.
here, it gets you out of California.
I know. I love coming to Dallas. Dallas is such a great town. So
Yeah, man. We'll link
lot
up
of
next
fun.
time you're down here. Thank you for taking the time to be here. It's an honor to have you as the first guest on the podcast.
Yeah, this is great.
And
You've been
I think
talking
what I'm
about
gonna
this for a long time,
dude, we've been trying to get it on the calendar for like a year. Part of that was my fault. I was trying to get it started earlier, but life got in the way. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start each podcast off with just a few random questions. It's early in California,
Ooh,
I know.
I
So
like
I'm
it.
going to get the brain flowing here. So what is your favorite childhood memory?
Ooh. That's a good one. That's a good question. Probably don't have a specific memory, just summertime on the farm that I grew up on was just awesome.
Okay, yeah, we're gonna get into your childhood. Any Christmases or anything like that?
No, not Christmas. I love Christmas time. Just because I when I was growing up, I used to love the snow. I still like the snow. I do love Christmas time. It's one of my favorite times of year. But yeah, just growing up on the farm in the summer and just so much to do and the freedom of movement and just a lot of chores, but afterwards you could do whatever you wanted. It was great.
Right. Okay. What is your biggest pet peeve? What pisses you off that people do?
Oh God, I hate fake people and political correctness. I think it's
we're gonna talk about that.
Yeah.
Well, while we're on that, what do you think about SOCOM bringing in that diversity and inclusion? Do you hear about that?
I haven't. I've kind of unplugged after I retired and was kind of like, yeah, let's really dive into civilian life. And I kind of have. And I keep in touch with a number of guys still, my close group of friends. I've got multiple threads from that perspective, but I have not been back to Coronado, which is where I spent most of my career. I lived on the island for a long time with another SEAL and my brother. And I have not been back there since January 2nd of last year.
Do you think that's a good thing for retirement for guys? Do you think if they try to stay too close to the community, it kind of makes it hard to either make that transition or you kind of have one foot in the door still?
I don't know. It depends. I did a stint as a contractor for our training department for about, not even 6 months, huh? No, it was 6 months. Yeah, about 6 months. I did a stint there, and it was not a good place for me. I was ready to go.
Yeah.
Now there's other guys that have been contractors there as long as I was in the teams. Yeah, they had done their time and then had gotten out and then had stayed, and it works for them. So I would say it's on a case by case basis from that perspective. That makes sense. What works for you?
Right. Okay. What's your favorite artist to listen to when working out?
Oh gosh, right now, Tool. Absolutely.
Tool? Yeah.
I saw them right before COVID. I've been a Tool fan since I was in high school, which dates me, but I love Tool. They're constantly on the playlist every single day. So
their last album was really good. Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
If you could sit down and talk to anyone past or present in history, who would it be?
That's a good question too. present, I would say I would like to have an in-depth conversation with Elon Musk, just because he's such an entrepreneur and just goes out there and gets shit done.
Yeah.
And I mean, what a success story.
I know, dude.
Immigrant, comes from Africa and here, and now he's one of the richest men in the world and has just some revolutionary companies that are driving some great initiatives, and I think they're awesome. So
yeah, I mean,
Elon Musk,
SpaceX being like one launch away from having to pull the plug on the whole thing.
Yeah,
I think it was like his 4th launch was a success, and now look at where they are. It's a great story.
Yeah, and from past, I don't know a lot of his stuff, but I would like to, and I'm kind of just dabble in it. But Marcus Aurelius, I think that would be pretty amazing discussion.
Yeah, dude.
Clearly, I need to learn Latin, but yeah.
Okay, sweet, man. And then this is a question that I'm going to ask every single guest that comes on, and it's kind of one of the main themes of this podcast. And so the question is, what does honor mean to you?
Ooh, so many things. I would say it's tied with integrity, and that it's tied with your word. It is so many. It brings up so many emotions for me. Like,
it's a big word in
there for someone. Yeah, absolutely. I would say what comes to mind is more of who you want to be. And I'm paraphrasing Dr. Jordan Peterson right now. It's like, you want to be that person that at your father's funeral, everyone looks to for strength, and dependency, or like your friends or whoever. And that's the man that I try and be, is in those times of, gosh, this really sucks. I would say that would be honor exemplified. Like, you're living an honorable life if you can do that on some level.
Yeah, that's good. That's the first time I've heard it put that way.
Yeah, maybe too general. And I mean, I can't claim credit for that sort of comparison. That is
right. Yeah, he's a wise man for sure.
He's pretty smart.
All right, man. Cool. So tell me a little bit about kind of where you grew up, what your childhood was like, and kind of what led you to joining the Navy.
Yeah. I grew up in Nebraska. I went to a one-room schoolhouse for a while until 5th grade. And then after 5th grade, too many kids moved away and the schoolhouse closed. I went to a bigger school. And we were on a farm south of town. My father was not in agriculture. He was one of the local physicians, but it was a working farm, and we didn't necessarily work it. We had some neighbors do the corn, but we had livestock and all those kinds of things. And growing up in that environment I would not trade it for anything. It's definitely taught me how to work. It taught me how to work.
Yeah.
Maybe too hard. Because I've often put myself in situations where I'm like, I will just keep working until this
to a detriment
turns the way that I want. Yeah. So it's a strength, but it's also a weakness, because I will work too hard and people will be like, yeah,
the family,
you need to ease off on this. Yeah, definitely the family. Definitely they take a toll there. And that's going on right now. I've got a job at a pharmaceutical company, which is great. But it's a full-time gig. And then I'm also in school right now I'm getting my master's at USC, and that's a full-time thing too. And then I'm, just trying to honor, commitments with you and plugging things in during my day when I have a gap, so it's like, I have an hour and a half gap here. And at some point, my kids are going to go, you did a podcast? And it's like, well, why didn't you have time for us?
Yeah,
so
man. I mean, I
kind of difficult
trying to balance everything. Obviously you got a lot going on, but definitely life tries to pull you in all these different directions. You got to do your best to kind of maintain focus.
Yeah.
Were you close to your parents, and do you have any siblings? I mean, what was that like as far as
I'm close with my parents. Yeah. They're not together, but I still maintain a relationship with them. And then I have an older sister and a younger brother.
Okay. All righty. And so you graduate high school, I assume. And
Yeah.
did you know you wanted to be a SEAL, or did you kind of stumble into the
No,
Navy and hear about it?
I knew I wanted to be a team guy, and I had remember quite vividly seeing an article from Time magazine. I think when I was like 6 or something like that. I think it was like 1983 or whatever.
Yeah.
But it was wintertime in Nebraska. There was this guy coming out of the water with an M16, and his face was painted green. It was just such a far departure from what I was living at the moment. And it's not like I didn't like winter. I liked winter, especially as a
Right.
kid. It's fun. But it was just so different. And I was like, that looks so amazing. I want to do that. And that stuck with me kind of throughout my childhood and young adult life. And I graduated high school and then backpacked around Australia for a little bit and just was kind of not sure what to do. And then I went to school briefly for music, actually.
Okay.
And then I was like, I don't want to do this. And my high school girlfriend got pregnant, and I was like, well, we're going to join the military. And I was like, and I'm going to go do this. And
I'm sure that's not the first team guy to have that kind of story.
Yeah, right.
Play out.
Exactly.
So what took you to Australia? That's kind of different. I don't think a lot of kids, especially today, do that.
No, well, I don't know. I mean, kids today. I maybe just because I don't travel within those circles, obviously, because I'm in a middle-aged adult.
Right.
But I'm not sure if kids do this anymore. But my mother was a foreign exchange student in Australia.
Okay.
And then my sister as well was a foreign exchange student in Australia. And
so you had some family there to go out and at least meet out there.
Yeah, it wasn't family, but it was friends. I had been to Australia once before, and it's just kind of like my mother kind of motivated me to do it. She said, why don't you go to Australia? And I was like, yeah, sure. Okay. And so I was there for, I think 3.5 months, something like that.
That's
and
awesome.
I backpacked around Australia. I briefly worked on a vegetable farm for a few weeks and made some money. But it's going to sound like a spoiled little shit, but my parents did did more than help fund it.
Right.
I mean, they paid for a lot of it, obviously, but there I was just kind of wandering around Australia. And then I came home and I got a job, and I took some schooling, and then, joined the Navy.
And this was all pre 9/11, correct? When you joined the Navy?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this is all pre 9/11.
What year did you join?
I was in buds. I joined in 97. So joined in 97. There's not a lot of widespread internet usage or any of that kind of stuff that everyone takes for granted now with these things.
Right.
You've got the power of the world in your hands. That wasn't the case. And so I joined and raised my hand at that point to go to buds. Is just, you join and then you volunteer in boot camp to screen. And I volunteered, and I had glasses at the time, and I have these for the screen, because I'm on Zoom calls all day long, and like dries my eyes out and bothers it. So these are like blue blocking glasses to help with the screen glare. But I had pretty horrible vision at the time, and there wasn't a waiver for that. I didn't know that. It's just like, okay, not really looking into things. And it's like, I'll just go and do this, and raise my hand. And they were like, you don't qualify. I was like, oh shit. So I went to the fleet for a couple of years as a cryptologist.
Oh man.
Which was a lot of fun, but also was challenging. It definitely showed me what I did not want to do. And I'm not trying to knock that.
That seems to be a theme. It's good motivation.
Yeah, it was. And honestly, I think I needed that, because I was a punk kid that was a little full of himself, and still am today.
Yeah.
And I needed that hard kind of, hey, you're not all that.
Yeah.
And this isn't the small town, and no one gives a shit about you, essentially. I mean, I did have people that cared and helped me get to where I wanted to go that were great. And gosh, their names escape me, but I had a BM1 that was a command career counselor that really helped me out. I had a couple senior chiefs that were that were really trying to help me out, and a captain that a captain that was like, yeah, I'll sign this and get you there, so that was great.
Would you say that fleet guys tend to do a little bit better in buds just because they don't want to go back to the boat?
You would think, but I want to say that the numbers don't support that.
Okay.
Which is interesting.
Yeah.
Because for me, when I got there, I had some pretty tumultuous experiences in the regular Navy. And part of that, I think, is because of just my personality, which is your typical team guy, which is fuck authority and just kind of, I'm going to do what I want. And, I had that kind of attitude already.
Yeah.
And
it probably stuck with you. Would you say that changed the older you got, or did you kind of keep that into your... Because like I've always heard from team guys, there's team guys and there's frogmen, and the frogmen tend to, be the pipe hitters that take that behavior through their careers.
I would say that there's varying degrees of that behavior. I would contend that I'm definitely one of the tamer ones when it comes to that, and not as outspoken. But I would say that I would do my deeds of dissension a little more surreptitiously.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, yeah, we'll do that, and be like, no, we're not doing that.
Right.
As opposed to a little bit more louder and verbose people that would beat their chests and say, fuck you, we're not doing that. And I had my moments where I was like that, and there's definitely a time for that. But I would say that I've mellowed out over the years, which is just kind of natural, right?
Well, and I feel like with the political climate, you guys can't get away with what you guys used to, for sure. And
I've been gone from the teams for almost 2 years now. So the amount of distance that the SEAL teams cover on a daily basis, let alone a year, is pretty staggering.
Right.
So, I mean, it's a high op tempo. So, I mean, to accurately have a pulse of what is going on in the community right now, I would not consider myself an expert.
So, what buds class did you go through?
236.
236. Okay, so you were after the documentary.
Yes, they were still around filming third phase stuff when we were there.
Yeah,
and it was we didn't experience too much of it, fortunately, but there were still moments when you'd see the camera crews and instructors would lose their shit, and things were a lot different then than they are now, for better and maybe for worse. But
was Michael Murphy in that class?
Yes, he was.
Okay, I think
he was in that class.
Yeah. Okay. So you go through buds. It's still pre-9/11. Anything stick out at buds? Did you go first time through?
I did. I did go first time through, which was a lot more common then than it is now. When I went through, you got one roll.
Yeah.
And that was it. And occasionally guys would get double rolled for medical issues, and it was because they were considered an exemplary student. But back when I went through, I mean, the instructors did not give a shit about you making it. And and I'm so thankful that I went through during that time frame, because the stories that I can tell people or that I lived through, I mean, it sucked, but it was great. And the instructors, I respected them. There are very few from my perspective that were vindictive. There's that I can think of right offhand. There was 3, that I was just like, yeah, you're a dick to be, you're just an asshole.
They got a little bit too much enjoyment out of being an asshole too.
Yeah. Like they're a bit of a sadist, and they single people out, and maybe undeservedly, just because they could. It was like, okay, gotcha, thanks. But by and large, I mean, you got beat, and it was like, okay, this is exactly how it's supposed to be. And it's not supposed to be. They're not going to be nice. They don't care. You're here. And as they explained it in first phase, and I forget who it was, but they were like, you want what we have, and we're the stopgate. We're here to prevent the people that don't belong here from getting it.
Yeah.
So I've got mad respect for the instructors that put me through buds, and served with a number of them afterwards, and never had a problem with them. You know, it was great. I mean, yeah, they beat the shit out of me. Absolutely did. But that was the role that they were supposed to be in. And it was to make sure that I had what it took to get there. And so I didn't take it personally, except for maybe like those three, you know.
Right.
And I remember who they are.
You're not bitter or anything about it.
No. I mean, I'm not bitter, but I know who they are, and it's just like, and I never worked with them after that, but they were pricks to be pricks, and people just generally were like, yeah, these guys, they take it too far, and they're assholes, and we don't want to be a part of them, you know.
Yeah.
So
there seems to be a split too, you know, like I feel like half the guys that make it through say they never thought about quitting, and like, I never thought about quitting. But then the other half are like, oh, well, you're lying if you say that you never thought about it. Where do you fall?
I mean, there's about a billion things that I would have rather been. And there's, man, like, gosh, you know, like, I mean, I never thought physically, I guess, about like, yeah, I'm going to go ring the bell. It was just like, fuck, I just want to stop. Like, I just want this to stop. It sucks. And I remember quite vividly in Hell Week on Thursday morning, I think it was, they woke us up, and I was like, this is miserable. And the temperature had dropped. We had a pretty warm Hell Week, you know. It was at the end of May. The water temperature wasn't that cold. We were in the water all the time. And then Wednesday night, like, the temperature dropped. And I just remember waking up, and I was like, man, it is freezing. I just can't get warm, like beyond what we already were, because they keep you in this mild state of hypothermia. There's a method to the madness, you know. I think that people come in, and this is just a little tangent, but, you know, I had the privilege of being an instructor, not at the phases, but in the SEAL qualification training. And the level of detail that is, or was, because it's been a few years, but presumably it's continued, but the level of detail that is put into those training evolutions to maintain or to contain the chaos is astounding. And I think that outside entities come in and they look at that and they go, holy shit, this is just a circus without a ringleader. We need to put some controls into here. Or older teen guys that kind of forget what it's like come in and they're like, oh, wow, I don't remember this, and now I'm in charge and accountable. And I think people put those, it's like, no, let's pump the brakes. There's a method to madness.
Right.
You know?
Right. Do you have any, like, is there one particular story from Buds that stands out to you as kind of like defining? Yes. I know there's probably several, but is there one that you can share that's
I've got like a couple. And it was this particular instructor. And he's a great guy. I have not had contact with him, but and I don't know what he's like from a social media perspective, so I won't.
That's fine. Yeah, we don't have to name
broadcast him, but he was a great instructor that fucked with you hard, but it was just like, did it in such a way where you're like, yeah, this is part of the game, you know. Yeah. And I remember this very vividly. It was during one of the med checks for Hell Week, and this just kind of personifies like Buds and the chaos of first phase and the later phases as well, at least when I went through, which was, we went through med checks and you're supposed to get dry clothes, and you put these dry clothes on and you immediately get wet because that's just how it is. And so I was standing by our boats and we were waiting for everyone to go through med checks. And this one instructor was like, okay, everyone, he beat us for a while. And he said, stand by your boats. So you go stand by your position in your boats. It's like, take seats. And everyone's passing the word, take seats, take seats. He was like, lay back. And everyone's like, lay back. It's like, put your hands on your chest. And he had this megaphone, of course, and he's doing all this stuff through there. He goes, and everyone screams, put your hands on your chest. And he goes, close your eyes. And everyone's like, not doing it. He was like, are you guys not fucking hearing me? And you're like, close your eyes. And of course, everyone's like, oh, okay, whatever. Close our eyes. And then you hear this sigh come over the bullhorn. And he goes, go get wet. And everyone runs and goes get wets. And he was like, back to your boats. And you stand back to your boats and you're wet. And he beats you for a while. And then he's like, by your boats. He's like, you idiots. I told you to close your fucking eyes. One of you didn't do it. And he was like, everyone lay down. And it was like, okay, close your eyes. And everyone closes their eyes. And then pretty soon you hear this, oh my God, go get wet. And you're like, what's going on? And so we go get wet and sandy and we get beaten and we're back on our boats. And the guy was like, I cannot believe how stupid you guys are. I'm trying to give you a break. He's like, why can't you let me help you?
Yeah.
And help me help you. And guys start getting pissed and they're like, everybody close your fucking eyes. And so of course we're out of our minds. We haven't slept for days and people are just like, close your damn eyes. People are screaming at each other and they're wet and sandy and they're getting beaten. And this goes on for like 45 minutes to an hour. He just does this over and over and over again. And I mean, it was like Wednesday morning or something. We had been awake since Sunday. I mean, you think anyone was not closing their eyes?
No.
Everyone was closing their fucking eyes. But it's just kind of like the mindless torture.
Right. It's
mindless torture of buds, which is just like, well, yeah, we're supposed to beat them. So I'm going to make it entertaining for myself.
Yeah.
And I think that's just like, yeah, that's buds. It's crazy. And people like the outside person would be like, this does not make sense. It's like, yeah, maybe not, but these guys needed to be active. Right. And keep going and be in a situation that was just really, really miserable to simulate how miserable it can get. And this is one of the ways that we do it. And you don't have to understand it. It's just that's what's going on. And honestly, I tell that story and I laugh about it. I think it is hilarious to this day.
Right. Well, thank you for sharing that. That's awesome. So you graduate, buds. It's still pre 9/11. Were you East Coast or West Coast first for you?
It's the West Coast. So 9/11 happened while we were in third phase. Okay. So we were up at La Posta and we were doing PT on the grinder. And one of the instructors comes out and is like, hey, a plane just ran into the Twin Towers. And I, like a jackass, joked. It was like, what, a Cessna? And Mike Murphy actually kind of chewed me out right there. He was like, hey, dude, pay attention. He was like, this isn't fucking funny. And I was like, oh, shit. And we finished PT, and then we were going into the field because at the time for third phase, we were doing special reconnaissance in third phase. They were showing you how to do that stuff. So it encompassed land nav, hide sites, communications, all that kind of stuff from a very rudimentary perspective. But our teams were getting ready to be inserted into the field. And they brought us in, and on the news, we watched the second plane hit, and everyone was like, oh, fuck. And then we went into the field for 5 days, and everyone was just kind of had that marinating for a while. And
did that change the way that you trained? I mean,
yeah. The mentality at Buds changed just like that. So,
and then you still did you have a probation period or did you go straight to SQT once you?
I went straight to SQT. So I was the third class to get their tridents at SQT, which is at the time just incredibly controversial.
I was gonna say that you probably weren't the favorite person showing up to a team with the trident. No. Those other guys had to do the trident board and all that.
Yeah, and I mean, I think there's merit to a certain extent to having standardized protocols across the entire community.
You know what you're getting.
Yeah, and but I also think that there's something to be said for the old trident boards. And I did not participate in one, but everyone else at the team when I showed up had, except for the new guys that had come with me. And the stories that they told about those trident boards and what they had to learn and what they had to know, just the depth of knowledge was so much greater than mine.
Right.
Now, my certain tactical skill sets that were provided to trainees, especially now, are great. I mean, when I went to a team, I didn't get any CQC. We got that at the team, and people went away for that regularly. There were 3 people at my team from my class of new guys that were kicked out of the teams for CQC. And now in SQT, you get 4 weeks of that, which is great. That's great. That's a great addition. But I think that the level of knowledge about gear and procedures and stuff, just based on what was told to me that came with those Trident boards, I think we should have kept that.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of knowledge lost. I mean, I remember walking around with a packet that was like 6.5 pages long, single spaced with, I don't know how many. I think I have it somewhere, if I'm not mistaken, but like over 400 questions. And it was about air department, comms department, ordnance department, intel department. And the old guys knew all of them. They knew all of them. And it was like, okay, learn this stuff. It's like, cool. And so I got like a smidgen of that when I was in the teams, but I didn't get full benefit. And I feel like I was cheated from that, honestly, because those guys knew so much because of it. And it just made them better operators.
So it's 2001 now, and you're a team guy. You're on, I guess, your first team.
Yeah.
How long did you have to wait before you deployed?
We had a year. So because I was at Team 7, and they essentially, so Team 7 and Team 10 were brand new teams at the time. I remember showing up at Buds, and I had to help with the graduation because I was a junior student. And they were announcing orders for the people that were graduating, and they were like SEAL Team 7, SEAL Team 10. I was like, who were those? Because I had read a number of books at the time, and there was nothing out. There was no information out there about those SEAL teams. And so, my class was divided in half essentially. And you were either East Coast or West Coast. And if you were East Coast, you went to SEAL Team 10. A couple of them went to Team 4, though. Like a handful of guys went to Team 4.
But y'all were mostly standing up those new teams.
Yeah, it was like, here you go. You're standing up these new teams. Because they had the longest workup cycle, and they knew that because we were new guys, we would require that time.
Right.
And so there was one guy from my class that went to SEAL Team 5, and he was prior Marine sniper and then also prior Army Special Forces. So he had been through a number of selection courses, and he went to Team 5, and then quite literally, he left for like 2 years, but then he spent his entire career there. So it clearly worked out for him because he got some great deployments and essentially homesteaded out of there right out of Buds.
Okay.
But he didn't need that kind of work. And they were like, well, this guy's got deployments already with multiple services in different theaters. We're just going to send him to Team 5 because he doesn't need a full workup. And the rest of us did. And we had a couple guys go to SDVs too. So
did you anticipate, I mean, like I said, I don't know how many deployments you've been on. How many trips did you make overseas?
I did 2 to PACOM, and then I did 3 to Iraq, and then 1 to Afghanistan.
Did you ever anticipate in 2001 that we'd be here 20 years later?
Oh, hell no.
Yeah.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
No, and I especially did not think that I didn't think it would be in this capacity. I didn't think it would be, pardon my French, this fucked up. Yeah. I thought that we would have had a better solution by now, but if we would have started doing some of the things that we suggested at the beginning, but it was like, oh, that'll be too expensive and it'll take too long. We need results now. Mm-hmm. Those countries would have been fine. I mean, you're familiar with the Marshall Plan, where after World War II, well, I mean, the basic premise behind it is that after World War II, we went into Western Germany and we rebuilt stuff. Right. We went into Japan and rebuilt stuff. And I can't remember if we did that with Italy. I think we may have had some involvement there, but I'm not sure. But look at those countries. Look at least for this example, because I want it to be a great one. Of course, shifted in my favor.
Right.
But look at Japan and Germany. They're top 10 GDP producing countries. And then look at Korea too. So we got involved in the Korean War, and
they
we
probably
did the same
started
thing.
out a little bit ahead before they went, compared to like Iraq or Afghanistan. They probably started out a little bit ahead compared to like when the war started, as opposed to like where Germany and those countries were after the war ended. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I mean, Iraq has oil. And
it's true. In Iraq, I think it's different than Afghanistan for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
Iraq has oil, but Afghanistan has a ton of rare metals in there.
Yeah.
And during the Obama administration, sold those rights to the Chinese. Now, the Obama administration did not sell the rights, but it was like, hey, if anyone should have bought those rights, it should have been the US, but the Chinese, and I'm not sure where this stands now on what's going on with that. But at the time, well, I want to say at least it's 2015, like the Chinese hadn't done anything with those mineral rights. Like they haven't developed it. They've got them, and now they're just
holding
waiting.
them.
Yeah, they're just holding them. So it's like, well, that was dumb. We could have helped them develop that and established a whole infrastructure around that, and it would have saved us so much money. Yeah,
right. And not to get too far into the weeds here, but you know, we're fighting each other in this country right now. We're so divided, and there's players like China and Russia who have these long-term strategic plans for the U.S. as far as, you know, this, I mean, they're playing the long game here. Can you talk a little bit about, I mean, you know, doing what you did, coming home, seeing the state of the country that we're in right now, knowing that there's foreign players who are loving this and they're taking full advantage of it, like China and Russia?
Yeah, I mean, we have an adversarial relationship with both of those countries. Right. I mean, we've been to war with the Chinese, you know, once in Korea.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't realize that.
Yeah.
For whatever reason.
And they're not our friends. I think a lot of people my age are like, oh, like, oh, it's, you know, China's
it's China. Awesome. It's like, yeah, they don't like us. Like, I mean, did very little work on that side of the house, obviously. Right. But I mean, when I was retiring, we had these attacks on the internet, like on our internet all the time. And I mean, I can't accurately speak to the number or who it was or whatnot, but I know China's heavily invested in that kind of stuff. Yeah. So, I mean, there's no shortage of people that want to see the US get taken down. And I always took solace that we would be able to rise above that and move forward as a people. And I still have faith from that perspective, but it is a sad state of affairs where we're at, where we're so polarized on things that you can't even have a discussion.
Mm-hmm. That seems to be the problem, is you can't even talk about it.
Yeah, and I've said this in a number of podcasts, actually, is that we have lost the ability to engage in polite discourse.
Yeah.
And I can't say, you know, have this point of view and come talk to you about it, because we are in this unspoken race to get offended and call foul and to point out how at fault someone is.
And that shuts down the conversation once you cry, you know, oh, you're a racist, you're a xenophobe, whatever word you want to use to try to shut down an argument. And you were talking about the phones, and, you know, people my age, I feel like, have all the information in the world at their fingertips, but they don't have the life experience really to make sense of it. And that's why I want to, you know, get guys like you on the podcast, because I feel like there's a disconnect between and it's probably all Americans, but certainly my age group, on what happens in America versus what happens overseas. And so I kind of wanted to ask you, I mean, you've been to Iraq and Afghanistan. Can you talk about some of the things you saw there, where when you hear people bitching about the United States, what goes through your mind? What would you tell them about what the rest of the world lives like what their reality is?
Oh gosh. I mean, we are so sheltered here, which I think is great.
Yeah.
and at the same time is terrible, because we really do have, from my perspective, we have rich kid problems. I'm sure people will tell me to shut the fuck up or whatever. I mean, and here's something interesting too. When people walk around with those signs, they're like, hey, the 1% and all that stuff. I mean, realize that if you're making above 50 grand a year, you are part of the 1% globally. Like,
Yeah.
put that in perspective. So that I forget what the poverty line is in the US, what marks that, but we're doing pretty well. People are so out of touch. And when you tell them what happens, I think, one, most people don't want to know. And two, when you explain things, they don't believe you, because it's such a far departure from what they see every day and experience, that it's just inconceivable. And rather than contemplate that, it's denial, because it's like, well, that just can't be, because that I just don't want to think about that. So it's, no, I'm not gonna.
It's almost
not
a
gonna
refusal
deal
to
with
even
it.
want to acknowledge what goes on.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's the same
world.
thing with our dialogue, right? I mean, I have an opposing point of view from you, and rather than acknowledge that and hear me out, it's denial, because I don't want to hear it, because that could potentially compromise my own thought process. And maybe I'll figure out at some stage that, oh shit, I'm actually wrong.
Right.
And if I'm wrong about that, that could challenge other things, and that could erode so many foundations that exist within my mental framework, that I could just completely come undone, because I'm not open to that. So I think a lot of people shut down those discussions out of that fear, personally.
Right. Was there anything you saw in Iraq or Afghanistan that you wish, and maybe you don't really want them to experience it, but you kind of wish they would have at least had those experiences, so maybe they'd be a little bit more grateful?
Oh, absolutely. Lots of things. The poverty, the level of poverty, the level of corruption.
Yeah. I mean, life is cheap over there. That doesn't life doesn't mean a lot over there.
It doesn't mean, just the rampant sexual abuse of just everyone that is not strong enough to defend themselves.
Yeah.
You know, it's it really is crazy. You know, just I mean, I'll never forget the first target that I was on in Afghanistan, because they're very, very, from my perspective, unique theaters. We, coming up to the target building, you know, climbed over the walls, all that kind of stuff, and there was literally a baby sleeping in the manger, and it was outside. You know, there was nobody near it. It was just this kid in a little crib outside, and it wasn't Jesus either. So it was not baby Jesus, it was a child. And I was like, and there was a donkey tied up nearby, and there was shit everywhere, and animals just kind of hanging out, and there were people sleeping in random places, and I was like, holy shit, this is crazy. This is pictures that I've seen out of illustrated Bible stories. The only difference is they've got radios, motorcycles, and AK-47.
Yeah.
And it was just like, holy shit.
And that's the reality. And the people over there don't have freaking iPhones to know that, you know, in America, we're on Windows 10, or we're on the latest and greatest.
Yeah.
You know, and we shit in water that's cleaner than what a lot of the world drinks.
Yeah.
And yet we still bitch over here. And again, I mean, it's embarrassing, because a lot of it is from people, you know, Gen Z, millennial, that age group, where they're just looking. I think Jocko said it on one of his podcasts. He's like, we manufacture our own problems. Like, we could do better, for sure. We could do better in certain areas, 100%. But we look for reasons to be pissed off and the victim.
Yeah. And I mean, I think part of that is just how we are hardwired as people. And I am not any sort of scientist, but I mean, we're geared to survive and find problems to overcome and survive. And
right. And ours are first world problems.
We don't have a lot of problems here.
Yeah.
So how many people sit back, and I mean myself included, and go, this is great. We don't need to improve anything. Let's just stay here. I don't do that at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't do that. I mean, I am the author of my own demise from that perspective on many levels.
Right.
And so are a lot of people. So we do it to ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. So, obviously you go through your career. Was there a deployment that stands out as being, just more memorable or more kinetic for whatever reason, a certain year that stands out to you?
2005, Iraq, during the surge. Everyone was there.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Foreign
it was
fighters.
Just there was foreign fighters, there was Chechens. I mean, from a SEAL team perspective, we had 6 different teams in country at the time.
Were you a 7 then?
I was with 7. So 7 and 10 were deployed. So were elements of Team 5 and Team 4. Yeah. And SDV 1 and 2.
Wow.
And it was,
did
I remember going on an op. What's
Rob
that?
Guzzo? Did you work with Rob Guzzo? Because I think he may have been there in 06. Did you work with Rob Guzzo?
With him. Okay. I did not. But I know people that were good friends of his.
Yeah. So, okay.
Yeah. That was interesting, maybe a segue into a different topic, but if I'm not mistaken, Rob opted to terminate his own life. And that was really like the first instance of that. And I remember when that happened, because it was shocking to me. I was like, why would you do that? And now here we are after 2 decades of conflict, and that happens regrettably regular. Well, not regularly, shall we say. It happens
way too often.
It happens a lot more often than I wish it would. One of my best friends and teammate did that January 2nd of 2019. And, a number of others have followed since then. And it's just tragic what is happening there. But, anyway, I digress. 05, the surge, that was, it was the best of times. It was the worst of times, I ran into guys, I have a picture of myself with 5 of my classmates from Buds, and we were all on the same op together, and we were all from different teams. And it was awesome. it was well, not all from different teams. It was like 3 teams represented, like 4 different platoons, and it was great.
Is there anything that you would feel comfortable sharing as far as something where either leadership, everything came together, something that was memorable for you on target, anything like that you could share?
Just how in sync both coasts and just the teams were during that deployment was like, it ain't no thing, to go on target and hit the target, conduct a battlefield interrogation, and then to flex to another target. And you just got into this rhythm, and you just did it. And it was great. And I mean, I remember doing an op with 6 different teams and 8 different platoons, and it was huge. And it's one of the funnest ops I think I've ever done. And the guys, I had like 1 other person from my platoon in the unit that I was assigned to, just because it was, hey, we got to get this done. We're going to put skills where we need them. And everyone was just plug and play and did it. It was great. I mean, the collaboration from my perspective has yet to have been seen again in my career.
Right.
Which has been over now for a couple of years. So I don't know what kind of joint operations are going on anymore, but I mean, everyone it didn't really matter. There's an animosity between East and West Coast, which is not often discussed outside of the family, but you didn't feel any of that. It was just like, let's just go out there and get it done.
So
and
you've been on both.
It was great.
Are you an East Coast, or what do you prefer?
I have been on both. And both coasts give me shit about that. It's like, oh, East Coast guy. or on the East Coast, it's like, oh, West Coast guy. And it's like E6 and below, the boys are pretty much the same. Everybody just wants to get after it.
Yeah.
There is a shift on the East Coast, though. I will say that. So it is a lot more. It is a lot more big Navy mindset. Yeah. I mean, East Coast guys are going to hate for me to say that, but that is real. That is absolutely real. There's a lot more uniforms and regulations and haircuts, at least when I was in. Now, it's 2 years ago. I haven't been on the East Coast since 2013. Who knows what the fuck it's like? But when I was there, it was a little bit more straight-laced, which
I can't say
benefits.
His name. I can't say his name right now because he's still active. I can tell you after we start recording. But we were getting drinks in Florida with like Brenda Welp, Gary's widow, and everything, and he had a family member that was going to Bud's, and he was like, you will be an East Coast SEAL. You will not go.
Oh yeah,
West Coast. And that makes sense now you said that, because he's a Master Chief, and so E9. So anyways, did you notice a change in yourself as the deployments went on and as the years went on?
Oh yeah.
Can you talk
about when I went to Afghanistan, which was my 5th deployment? I came back from that one, and I had been operating. I'd been to Iraq twice, been to the Pacific twice. I'd been a team guy for 12 years at that point, and had never even been on an operation where anyone had been wounded. I'd lost friends, and heard about, people dying, and obviously seen people dying and all that stuff, but it had never been Americans or anyone that I cared about. We had always gone out and we won every time. And so, I took my job seriously, but went to Afghanistan, and our task force lost 5 people in the first 2 months. And coming back from that deployment, and then I had just some other friends that were there with the squadrons and stuff, that people that I knew that passed, and it's just that I came back from that deployment and I was different.
Did your family notice it?
My wife is the one that brought it up. Yeah, my spouse is the one that brought it up. She was like, something's not right. And that's kind of the slow creep that has progressed to now a downhill sprint for PTSD. So, and not a lot of people talk about it, but maybe we should,
right?
And some people may call me a pussy or whatever. Honestly, I could give 2 shits about it. Like, I have PTSD, and I have what, for lack of a better term, could be called like these attacks that happen where previously, prior to my best friend committing suicide, would manifest themselves in anger, and I would just get all ragey and pissed. Mm-hmm. And then after he killed himself, they manifest themselves in like really deep sorrow. And
were you able to go to NICO?
I did.
Did that help? Can you, for the listener, I don't know the acronym, can you explain?
Yeah, it's the National Intrepid Center of Excellence, and it's they're phenomenal. I still keep in touch with some of those people. They're a great initiator for care, but they do not have the structure to continue it. Yeah. So you go there for, I think I was there for like 6 weeks or something. And it was great. And you get this daily one-on-one care to help you essentially unfuck yourself.
I've heard people say it's the best medical care they've ever received.
Oh, it's phenomenal. Yeah, it's 5-star service. Just these people are like, hey, we're here to help you and to fix you. And it's the first time in my career that, anyone really dedicated that much effort to it outside of myself. And the teams are spoiled. Like, we have rich kid problems from that perspective within the military. Is we really do have it made. We are catered to on so many levels, and I'm so grateful for the experiences and the care and support that I had as a SEAL, because it really was truly phenomenal. But this takes it to a whole other level. It's like being in the NFL, and it's awesome, and then it's I guess, going or being part of a Pro Bowl or something,
right?
If they really play the game right.
Was
it's like, it's the All-Star game. It's like, yes, this is the All-Stars.
Was NICO available to most team guys, or is it based on kind of rank and experience and time in, or is it becoming available for more and more people to partake in that? Because obviously it's expensive.
It's really expensive. And again, this was almost 2 years ago now, so who knows what has changed since then. But it was kind of reserved for guys that were really screwed up getting out of the teams or retiring from the teams.
And so, but once you go through NICO and you're out, it's kind of up to you to do what you need to as far as mental health, physical health.
Yeah. I mean, and it was shocking to me when I got out of teams. I was having horrible back issues and couldn't walk. I had to use a cane. And was just in this really bad place. And one day I was in and the next day I was out. And my health issues from a mental health perspective and from a physical health perspective, they hadn't changed, but all the support was gone.
Right.
And that was shocking to me. And I didn't really fully comprehend. It was like, oh yeah, I'll still be able to get this stuff.
Yeah.
No. And so like this massive safety net was just completely kind of torn out from underneath you. And I really took it for granted. And it has been very challenging to get the appropriate level of care for all the stuff that's going on. I mean, every labrum in my body is torn. And I would not say I've had that kinetic of a career. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's guys out there that have done way more stuff than I ever did and went through so much more, and presumably they'll be taken care of. Maybe they won't, and they'll find themselves in that same place. And the VA
segue.
Yeah, my primary care provider, she's great.
I think we talked about that at Luke's we talked about the VA, and I think you said the San Diego VA was actually pretty good.
Yeah, my primary care provider is great. Okay. And then like outside of that, there's a lot to be desired.
Yeah.
And they're doing, I want to give credit where credit's due if I can, but I can't. They just,
I know.
They can't. I mean, some of them try, and then there's some providers that are like, I went in and I was like, hey, I'm having these problems. I was like, well, it's kind of nothing we can do. And that's just kind of a carry on from Balboa. And I'm like, cool. All right.
Yeah.
Outside of pain management over at Balboa is freaking awesome. They actually saw me after I had retired just to help with stuff. I mean, they're just great. And because there's some sort of window of opportunity, but then like there's other entities like dental, like I'm talking funny because I got a retainer in to fix all my jacked up teeth that I had to, wait till I got out. Cause I went to dental and was like, hey, I need help with this. And they're like, you've got less than a year in. I was like, I have 9.5 months left. And they're like, oh, we can't help you. I'm like, okay, thanks. Wow. There's a lot of that kind of stuff that happens in those circles.
Right. Well, I mean, obviously I think that's a good segue into this topic too, is, it's not just the years that you're in where you're serving. It's like your body is probably permanently damaged from what you've experienced. That's going to affect you the rest of your life. And the thank you for your service, it's kind of become this corny line where people just say thank you for your service, and some people really do obviously mean that. But I just pulled something up from Andy Stump. Did you work with Andy?
I had met him a number of times, but I didn't ever work with him. I never operated with him. He's got a phenomenal reputation. He's got some great content that he puts out. He's certainly very eloquent writer. Individual. Yeah, he's a brilliant writer. I wish I could write half as good as him, honestly.
So he wrote this. He said, saying thank you is not enough. We send our best and lose them in the fight against the worst this world has to offer. If you want to respect and honor their sacrifice, it needs to be more than words. You have to live it. Take a minute and look around, soak it in, all of it, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So he wrote that in an article called A Debt That Cannot Be Repaid.
Yeah, he's got some great articles out there.
Yeah,
His Confessions of an Idiot. I think that's such a great title.
Yeah. I mean, when you hear that, and what
I'm not
would
trying
you
to
like
suck
to
Andy Stump's
see?
dick, okay, everybody? I'm just a fan.
You're just a fan. It's okay. What is something that people can do if they want to really support veterans, and what would you like to see more of from the younger generations, my age?
Oh gosh, understanding would be great, to step outside of that box and realize that, yeah, freedom is not free. And it's not an exaggeration. And I've said this a number of times to people, is that at least within the special operations community and many conventional partners as well, right now, in this moment, and every moment you breathe, someone is out there doing something to protect this bubble that we call the United States. And that is not a lie. That is really happening. I mean, and it just, and not just the military, but also the State Department, the FBI, the CIA, like all of these agencies out there. People are just like, oh, it's just so popular right now to hate on even our own local law enforcement, let alone our national police, through the FBI and that kind of stuff. And it's just like, you really don't realize the stability that they bring. And I just wish people would respect that just a little more.
Yeah.
And there's this fine line between understanding what exists outside the walls and freaking out about it, and respecting, hey, I know they're doing something and I don't particularly want to know, just because maybe I'm not prepared for that mental burden, if you will.
And let's have some understanding when guys come back and need help, because you can't have, I think someone said, like, the dogs of war, and you train people to be a little bit more violent at times when needed.
Yeah.
When they come home, they're gonna probably get in a little bit of trouble, right? Or they're gonna need a little bit of help.
They can, yeah. I mean, there's this particular dichotomy within the SEAL teams, which is, yes, we want you to be this monster, if you will. But then we also want you to be this very, very rigid, obey the rules kind of person. It's like that just doesn't work with how, at least when I went through, BUDS was constructed, which was much like the Spartan, gosh, I forget the name, the Agogi, or I forget how you pronounce that, but I mean, the Spartans were encouraged to steal and cheat and all this stuff. And that was instilled in us. When I went through BUDS, it was like, yeah, if the saying is, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. And it's like, yeah, because you want to use every advantage possible to get ahead. And then people within a leadership position are blown away when SEALs are like, you got caught doing what? You stole a car to run from the police. And it was just like, why did you do that? And it's like, well, duh, because I didn't want to get caught.
Yeah. I'm sure you're probably thankful that technology wasn't what it was back when you were a new guy and getting into trouble. And I mean, man. So we're still good on time, right? You got about 15 more minutes?
Yeah. Okay. We're good on time.
Yeah. So I just wanted to ask you a couple questions, kind of, that are going to be more themed about what this podcast is going to kind of tend to be about. So is there someone that you've lost that you can talk about, that you think about every day, and try to maybe explain how you try to honor them and keep their legacy alive?
Oh yeah. My buddy took his own life, Dave Metcalf. I think about him every day.
Yeah.
That was the hardest one. That's the hardest one I've had, because it didn't need to happen. And you sit and you ask yourself why. And then, at least for me, and I haven't talked about this publicly, but I think someone needs to, is that it served as an initiator for my PTSD to, like, really, really showcase itself. And then I found myself in that place where presumably he was. Mm-hmm. And I figured out why. And you're just like, when you're sitting there, with a gun in your hand, and you're contemplating things that you never thought you would. And you're just like, after you come out of that funk, and it takes a while, you can look back and you go, okay, I get it.
Yeah. I mean, thank you for sharing that. I mean, I think people do need to hear it. And
Yeah, we don't talk about it. And I know that there's a lot of frogmen out there that are struggling, and it's really hard to admit that. And you know, there's those awkward, vulnerable feelings where you're like, fuck, this is tough. But I think we need to start the dialogue somewhere, and why not now?
Do you feel a responsibility? I mean, I know you do, I'm sure, but do you feel a responsibility to kind of make the most of your days? Because I mean, I'm sure you've lost a lot of friends, or guys in the teams who have passed and they can't make the most of their days now. So do you feel kind of an obligation or responsibility to perform? I mean, do you have like
I don't feel that obligation, but I do try and make the most of my days, for a number of reasons.
Yeah.
But there's a number of times when you pause and you're like, I wish that they could enjoy this with me. And I do have those moments, not to be overly dramatic or anything like that, but I do absolutely have those moments.
Okay. All righty. One other question I had for you was, can you talk about maybe your a failure you've had and what it taught you?
Failure that I had, so many to choose from. I would say that the pinnacle of your career as an operator is when you finally either become a team leader, if you're at a squadron, or if you're at a regular team like I was, to be a platoon chief. And I think that I did not do a great job as a platoon chief. I think that I could have done so much better. And I really wish that I could have gone back and done it again afterwards. But it was a one-shot deal, and I had my shot. And there are so many things that I would do differently.
Right.
And I mean, I look at that as a personal failure of mine. That I mean, I broke out well, and we had, relatively speaking, an okay deployment, but I think it could have been so much better. And it goes back to me just not being true to what I knew was right, and to try and please certain people. And I shouldn't have done that. There's so many other things.
That's a good lesson.
Factor into that, but that one was a bitter pill to swallow.
I think that's a good lesson. Not to please people and be true to what you're so. And I'm sure you're being humble, because I know a lot of guys I've talked to about you have been, Johnny Martin on Instagram.
Oh, yeah.
He remember, I don't know if I posted a picture from when we were at Luke's wake or not, but he was like, dude, Greg is a brilliant savage.
Oh,
I was like, all right, man.
I appreciate that. But
yeah,
we're all our own worst critics, but I think that I think that's an objective assessment, is that I could have done so much better as a platoon chief. And
right.
I personally view that as one of my great shortfalls. So,
well, I mean, what are you doing now? So you retired from the Navy in 2019.
Yep. I started my 22 years.
22.
I did I had my own consulting company for a while, and Jocko Willink and his crew of merry men have really blazed the trail for really anyone from special operations to get out and start their own business within leadership, organizational overhaul, coaching, and stuff like that, and be successful. And that's what I did. I had my own consulting company, and it was great for a few months. And then COVID happened, and it crushed my client base, and that it was very challenging. Yeah. Fortunately, a former client was like, hey, we like what you're doing, and we want to see you come on full time. And so I work for them now, and it's a pharmaceutical company, and they're a phenomenal company, and I could not have landed at a better place. And just full of great people that in many aspects are have a very, very team environment feel, and how they, at least within the industry that they are in, are very out of the box thinkers that are all about moving quickly and being unconventional and just doing great things. And then just genuinely that they really do give a shit about helping people.
Yeah.
Like they really do care. Like it's not something that's just like plastered on the walls and it's, yeah, here we're here to help people, but really we're here to make a lot of fucking money. You know,
Right.
there's none of that.
That's a pretty common thing, I feel like, in a lot of businesses.
Yeah.
When I worked in College Station, when I worked in College Station, I worked for an oil and gas company, and my boss, like in the interview, was like, "Do you want to work? Do you want to work hard and make a lot of money, or do you want to like feel satisfied with what you're doing?" And I was like, "I want to be."
Can I do both?
I was like, "Well, I want to like enjoy what I do and feel like fulfilled." And that was the wrong answer. He was like, "No, that's not the business we're in. We're here to make money." And I don't think he was right on that at all.
I would like to think that you can do both. I guess we'll see. I mean, I turn a good wage, and I enjoy what I do. So,
that's awesome.
I'm not Bill Gates, you know, I don't make hundreds of millions of dollars, but I live well and my family is well taken care of, which is important to me. And we can largely do what we want. You know, it's awesome. Feel very blessed to be in this position during the economic downturn that we're experiencing right now, you know, which presumably could get worse. I hope not, but you know, it looks like we're trending that way, and maybe we need that reset so people genuinely that are doing all this complaining have something to legitimately complain about. But I mean, I'm not looking for that.
I know you would think that during COVID, we could be a little more grateful, especially just to have a job and be fine. You made a post during the shutdown. Actually, this is what I kind of wanted to end with. You know, you made a post during the shutdown about being the thermostat, not the temperature.
Oh yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about that? Because I think that's an awesome thing. And I kind of want to hear you just explain that. I think people should hear that.
Yeah, and I want to give credit where credit's due. I did not come up with that phrase. That's kind of there is a phrase like that. It's not as widespread in the teams, but there's people that talked about that. And there's this one particular person that I know that kind of described that to me. And I was just like, that is such a great analogy, and took it and kind of tweaked it for my own purposes to, you know, spread, you know, that concept, that mentality to the civilian populace, you know.
So what's it mean? So, tell us what it means here.
I mean, you can walk into the room just like now, just like what's happening between the left and the right, or whoever else is offended out there, you know, however you want to break things down. We can break things down infinitely into groups until you get to the individual, which is what our Bill of Rights is about, and which is what a bunch of anyway, we could go down that rabbit hole too. But it's basically, you're in this situation, and we'll just use our current political climate where the temperature's high. Set a new temperature, walk into the room, and be that touchstone that people can go off of, that foundational structure that's like, yes, we can build the groundwork off of this. We're not gonna go in and escalate to where the temperature's at. We're gonna lower it to where it needs to be,
right?
Or raise it if necessary. But I would say right now, lowering the temperature
right now,
is a lot better.
Let's put the AC on, man, right now.
Yeah,
let's put
the AC on.
Well, hey, man, I can't thank you enough for coming on. Like I said, it's an honor. You're going to be the first guest on the show. It's an honor to have you. Is there anything that you want to plug? You know, where can people find you? Anything that you want to plug right now? I don't know if you're trying to stay private as far as your social media right now, but you tell me what you want to plug.
Yeah,
right now.
I mean, I'm not trying to stay private, but I just I dropped off. I was posting regularly on LinkedIn and Instagram, and about once a week I was posting, which is very unnatural for me. I just don't do the social media thing, but I was actively trying to. And then I'm just so busy that I do not post content, but maybe I'll start again. You know, I would like to
find you.
They can find me on Instagram. That's Fatal Flaw Nation. Even though that consulting company is in hibernation right now.
It's on hold. It's all right.
It's on hold. We'll see when it comes back. But
okay, so Instagram.
I work for
I'll plug that.
Instagram. I have a LinkedIn profile, but I don't often look at it.
Right.
But Instagram, from a social media perspective, or from a media perspective, if they wanted to message me and for me to see it, I check my Instagram like a couple times a week, and that's the best way to get in touch with me if people wanted to get in touch with me. But I'm curious as to why that would happen.
Well, you never know. After this podcast, people, hopefully you don't get like too many messages or anything. But I'm going to get this coin out today. So this is
thank you.
Every guest is going to get a coin. I want to give a quick shout out to Brett Lynch at Patriot Challenge Coins. He's made 3 coins for me, and I've used a couple different companies, and he's the best. He's a team guy too. I don't know if you know.
The name sounds familiar.
Yeah. So if you want a challenge coin made, check out Brett Lynch at Patriot Challenge Coins. But Greg, like I said, thank you for your time today. I appreciate it. I'll probably have you on again at some point. And
yeah, that'd be great. I love dialogue.
Yeah, it's man. Fun. I'm going to go ahead and. All right, guys, that was it. I really hope you enjoyed the episode and that you got something from it. I'll definitely have Greg back on in the future. If you'd like to support the podcast, please do me a favor and just share this with your friends if you want to. And if you can, give us a follow on Instagram at The ReFounded Project, on Twitter at The ReFounded Proj, that's PROJ, and on Facebook at The ReFounded Project. Thanks, guys.